Hello and welcome to another episode of Make and Tain. So here I'm joined by Simon Foster from Yorica. And if you've not heard about Yorica, it's like an allergy-free dessert, waffles, crepes, which is free from the 14 different allergens, which is absolutely incredible. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. How are you doing?
All good, and you're welcome. Well, welcome to the shop.
I know, yeah, honestly, I was like, I met Simon over a coffee before Christmas, and I was trying to find out, who's the face of Yorica, or like someone from Yorica to speak to, because I've really kind of always looked up to Yorica, and I think it's amazing, obviously, to open up a restaurant which is free from 14 different allergens. So can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you kind of got involved with Yorica?
Yeah, I can. I'll tell you a bit about the shop first, because it was around before me, so I can't take all the credit for how far we've got. So back in 2016, the store opened. The founder has a son with serious allergies, and that inspired him to open somewhere that he could take his kids, and somewhere that families like his with the same challenges could come. And so the store opened in 2016. And I only really joined in 2018 when we realized if we really wanted to take this to the next level of scale, that we had to get into the supermarkets. And so in 2018, we opened a factory up in Ealing, and now we're supplying Ocado, Waitrose, and by the time this podcast goes out, we'll also be in Holland and Barrett nationally as well. So, it's really starting to take off now, and people can get the product local to where they live now, which is much easier than coming to London every time.
I mean, that's amazing now. It's all in the huge supermarket. So it's in Holland and Barrett. Is it in, is it Ocado?
Ocado, Waitrose, Holland and Barrett.
Yeah.
And so we're in over 600 stores in the country now, and 3 different flavors out there.
Yeah.
So from what started here as an experiment, a concept store, we've been able to convince some of the major retailers to take us, and the plan is eventually to go all across Europe.
I think it's quite interesting as well, because people who probably don't have allergies might come here and they might not, they think, oh my God, it's free from all these allergies. What does it taste like?
Yeah, exactly.
So is it always a surprise when they taste this ice cream? Oh my God, it tastes delicious and it's free from all these different allergens.
It's the bit I always forget to talk about, and again, the same today. We take it for granted that it tastes just as good as dairy ice cream. It's truly an excellent product. Some of the early experiments in free-from ice cream ended up with a product that was a bit more like sorbet, a bit more crunchy and icy at times. But really, we've got to the point now where we can make something where there's no compromise on taste. We offer 16 different flavors here, and waffles and crepes that you can't really tell the difference to the normal. Let's use the word normal. Sorry, products that are out there.
What's usually reaction then, where say a customer who maybe has a kid with an allergy and they walk into the store? Is it just crazy to see the reaction where the kid can actually eat anything on the menu?
I've got a kid of my own who hasn't got allergies, actually, and kids will always be excited about going to an ice cream shop. But for me, the one that really cuts through is when you see the mum, the reaction of the mum, where she can, for the first time, relax. She can push her kid into a room and say, choose what you want, which is a phrase she's probably never used before in her life. And you can just see the sort of the respite almost that mum gets by being here for a short period of time, and the kid gets just left alone to get on and behave like a normal kid around ice cream, frankly.
I was going to say, must reduce the anxiety as well, because I see all these parents and they're taking these kids to the restaurants, and I get bombarded with questions where to take my kids to this restaurant or to take kids to this restaurant. Yeah. I'm always if you're in London, go to Yorica, because it's safe, and like you said, there's not many options where parents can feel that kind of anxiety go, by taking them to a restaurant and making them feel a bit at ease with it.
Yeah, we still get, the parents are still naturally anxious because they're coming into a small restaurant and they're trusting us with their child's life, frankly. And so there will always be follow-up questions, further questions. There are allergies outside the top 14 where they'll want more information if their child is unfortunate enough to have allergies outside the top 14. So we still have a number of people who need more information, but they start from a position of hoping that we can provide for them. And in nearly every case we can. There's some, we carry fruit here, so fruit allergies is still an issue. But of the major 14 and many of the others, we can still reassure.
Do you get a lot of questions then about cross-contamination and whether where you saw the ice cream, for example? Is that something a lot of people do kind of bring up when they're...
They want to know how we do it, because it's quite a a rarity that a shop is able to make these commitments. And the simple answer to the question is only we have an entirely dedicated factory. So every supplier, every ingredient we take in comes from a dedicated factory, and our factory itself is dedicated. So we're not relying on cleaning routines. We're not relying on an employee to remember to clean everything between the allergy batch and the non-allergy batch. We remove the risk of somebody having a bad day at work and getting it wrong by the fact that nothing ever enters our factory that has any of the 14 allergens in. It makes it economically quite challenging for us because we can't, as many ice cream manufacturers might do at the start, they just sub it out to somebody else's factory and ask them to make it for them. We can't do that.
Then you're kind of putting your trust in like someone else then to make them realise like they're definitely not going to come in contact with nuts, and if anything goes wrong, then if Yorica was the face of it and it was a factory's fault, then everyone would be pointing fingers at you.
Yeah, well, I'm the director of the business, and that's corporate manslaughter potentially. So there's if I haven't taken all the precautions, if I knew there was a risk and didn't advertise it, it's a very serious risk for me to advertise that we're allergy free and not deliver against that. So it's a huge personal responsibility as well on the business. And it's why elsewhere you see lots of alibi declarations, because ultimately the director of that business knows they must not purport to do something they can't. And so you'll see the horrible may contain, made in a factory that also ... And that was the obsession of this business when we launched, was that we would not have to resort to alibi declarations, because the people who need this can't play Russian roulette. They have to be absolutely certain. You don't need ice cream in your life, so the easiest thing to do if you're not sure is to edit it out.
I think that's what I did my whole life. When I was a kid, I went on these like family holidays, or even if I'm out with friends now and there's like an ice cream van, like I would literally avoid it, because they can never like guarantee it. Or it's so annoying because like I remember going to like Milan and my friends are getting out these crepes and waffles, and I'm like, oh my god, it looks delicious, but I couldn't go like anywhere near it. So it's amazing to have a store like Yorica where it gives you that opportunity to try these things you would never usually have. Like.
Yeah, exactly. And we're not pretending for a second this is health food either. I mean, some people on the muggles who don't have allergies think that allergy-free is a healthier ice cream. Ultimately, it's calorific. It's got fat in it. We use coconut cream, and it's a high-fat product. It's delicious because it's got all of those things in it. So little and often is still the case. Even if you have allergies, you shouldn't be eating this for breakfast. This is a treat that you should have occasionally.
Every now and then.
But it's nice that you're able to do that. And now that we've got national distribution, it isn't just your trip into London. You can have it, as your weekend treat, on the sofa at home.
I think what was really interesting when I met you over coffee in King's Cross. So literally, fair play to you. You bicycle over, and I was like, I'll meet you over my lunch, and I really appreciate that. And we were speaking. I know we spoke a bit about the factory and the cross-contamination. It was really interesting. You're saying like the procedures where you've got to put on like all the overalls, and there's like 2 separate doors to get to the factory. Could you explain a little bit about like?
We start in a very small factory, as a business of this size always has to, and so we have to put in all the procedures to make sure that accidents don't happen. So we start from the fact that none of our staff are allowed to bring allergens in for lunch. All the staff in the store here, for example, we pay them a lunch allowance, so they have to leave the store. They can't bring in packed lunch. They have to go out and eat locally outside the store, so there's no risk of cross-contamination in the store. The factory has an airlock on it, in effect. The first door has to be closed before the second one is opened, and the team will change and disrobe in the gap in between the 2 doors, such that they're not carrying anything accidentally in from the outside world. The hand washing procedures are extreme. We're testing regularly for the presence of allergens. So even though we know we've brought nothing in, we will still do regular allergen checks to ensure that, doubly check that these
things definitely not coming in contact.
So it's very much a belt and braces approach that enables us to do this. And then we have a huge audit trail through to our suppliers also to make sure that they're reassuring us that they followed the same procedures that we have, so they can commit not only that product doesn't have allergens in, but that specific pallet they've sent us is assured to be allergy-free. So it's a huge administrative burden we take on, but it's the only way to do this and be absolutely certain.
Yeah, you've got to be absolutely confident and like feel that customer confidence that you've done all these different procedures to make sure that the product does not come in contact with nuts. And
Yeah.
I've been out a few times. I think the only time I actually eat desserts is either Yorica, or if you go to a really nice restaurant, the chef hand makes the dessert.
Yes, yeah.
Which 9 times out of 10, if you go into, I don't know, to a restaurant, they don't usually make the desserts on site, or they get them sent in, and they can never really kind of like trust it.
Yeah.
So-
It's one of our real ambitions as well. As we're at the moment, we're small, and so we don't make it efficiently enough to go into a food service economically. One of our real ambitions when we go to the next factory is to be able to make it efficiently enough that we can supply restaurants. So ultimately, on the menu everywhere should be an option that you can have for dessert, that where they can remove the seal and you know it's clean.
I was gonna say, like, it'd be amazing to see like Yorica in restaurants. Is that something in the future potentially you would think about to maybe partner up with a few chains to say that we'll provide the allergy-free ice cream?
Well, we're in test at the moment. Where it happens to be in the Bell and Dragon chain of pubs, which are around my home. It's where I live, and so I've convinced the local chef to put it into his 6 restaurants and to test it and give feedback. Ultimately, it's not economic for us to do that or for him to take it from us, but we're doing it as a test, and it gives the staff a conversation. So when you say, I have a nut allergy at the table, they can immediately suggest to you, oh, we have a product specially for you that's in the kitchen. And so from the chef's point of view, it's nice to have that conversation rather than listing what you can't have.
It's so important for that conversation. I've spoke about this at a show in Liverpool, and I was saying that like a lot of these restaurants don't really have that dialogue. So it's really interesting for you to say, oh, you can't have this, but I can provide you this, and have that conversation, trying to build that confidence really with that consumer of the product. So.
The biggest problem we have is a couple of his members of staff have allergies, and they keep nipping into the kitchen and eating the ice cream on their breaks.
Oh, really?
And so we're constantly having to replenish.
Replace it all the time. Yeah,
but nice problem to have. It means it
I was gonna
tastes
say,
okay.
that's not a bad problem. I'll take that as good customer feedback. Like.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. Like, so obviously before you worked at Yorica, you worked within the food industry.
Yeah.
Was it really interesting or insightful, obviously, then getting a job at working for Yorica and then understanding kind of like the allergies? Or was you aware about the allergy world before you started?
I was aware of it, and I was a chemist in my academic career before becoming a marketing and sales and foodie guy. But really, my level of naivety is embarrassing now. I've managed to have a career in food for 20 years and had only a really naive understanding. And I knew basically the alibi bit. So I knew what I had to say to make sure that I was covered, but I didn't know what I had to do to enable you to eat my food, in effect. So what are the steps I had to go to remove that alibi declaration? So you're taught very early in your food career how to cover your ass.
Yeah.
But you're not. And then it's broadly explained to you that it's uneconomic to do a shared use factory and to take the allergens out.
Oh, okay.
So the main thing you're trained to do is to remember to put the alibi declaration in.
Yeah.
So this is the first time in my career I've had the chance to fight the other way, to try and work out what is necessary to make the more positive claim.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, so did you have any like family members with allergies then?
No,
No.
I'm a trained marketing person, and what your skill is supposed to be, whether I'm good or bad, other people will judge. But ultimately, to talk to someone like you and the 100,000 people that will come to this store this year, many of them have got allergies. And every time I'm in the store, I'll be trying to have a conversation with all of them, because what you're trying to do is form an opinion. One of the challenges, actually, of being somebody with a specific allergy is you keep imposing your problem on the business.
Yeah.
And actually, it's not just nut allergies, it's people with multiple allergies. It's also, once you've made an allergy-free product, it's very easy to then make it appropriate for vegans also.
Yeah.
And so you can increase your target audience. So what I've tried to do is to make this commercially viable rather than purist, if you understand.
I think it's interesting when you mentioned about like veganism, because when I search Yorica, all the articles straight away is like vegan ice cream parlor, which is great for vegans. But I was thinking, oh, if you've got an allergy, you probably wouldn't click straight away that Yorica is. I don't know, when I searched it, the main articles are all to do with like vegan rather than people with the allergies, and I understand that. Obviously, like veganism is absolutely massive, and a lot of people talking about it, but I was also a bit like, if they have an allergy, would have clicked up on that. I might have seen the headline said vegan Yorica ice cream, and probably not picked up on it, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, there's two very different communities in our store, which throws up some issues sometimes. But the vegan lifestyle is an opt-in in effect. And so because it's an opt-in, it's not imposed on you, you're much more likely to be evangelical about it, talk about why you've made that opt-in in your life, and to encourage other people to consider it as well. And so it's a very vocal diet. Whereas I've been listening to your podcasts over the last couple of weeks that are preparing to meet with you, and you've covered clearly about dating and other situations where it's frankly not the first thing you'll volunteer on the table. You know, it's one of those things that you might be more reticent about saying that I have gut issues or intolerances, and so it might be something that comes up at a second or third date, not your first line. And so it's naturally a community that it takes a little bit more time to break through, for people to recommend and trust you. But once somebody trusts you, you've got them for life, hopefully. That's what I'm looking for, a long-term relationship with our consumers.
And I think hopefully as time go on, like, you know, like obviously vegans are very proud to be vegan and they shout about it online on Instagram. And hopefully people with allergies will hopefully get to that point in the next few years where they'll be like, you know what, I've got an allergy.
It's certainly at that tipping point now, I think where there's more mass awareness of the challenges that you're facing. And you know, hopefully we're the first of many. We're sort of a market leader. We're the first to make the very clear, bold statement on the front of pack, all 14 major allergen-free. But I've been sitting in this store many times talking to people who want to follow us in different categories, whether it be cakes or cookies or whatever else. There's a real opportunity for this to become a claim that other businesses make as well. And the more common it becomes, the easier it will be to navigate this and talk about it.
And I think as Yorica goes on, I think now you've got that trust with the consumers, definitely within like the allergy community. I think like it'll just get bigger and bigger, and whatever product you do launch, you've already built that trust where you know what, I know I'll be safe with that. Would you look at expanding the products from ice cream, waffles, and crepes later on down the line?
Yeah, we definitely want to. We're at a real sort of moment now where we've filled our first factory. We'll do 50 tons this year of ice cream, and that's about as much as the little factory can do. And we need to build a new, bigger one. And when we build that new, bigger space, there will be space within it so that we could put in a line that makes something else as well. And so we're at that point now where we need to commit to something that's maybe 10 times bigger and grow into it. And one of the easier ways to grow into it is to have other, probably related dessert products or something like that. But there's a real opportunity for us to make this broader than just ice cream.
With this being like quite new, like obviously with the products be free from 14 different allergens, do you have many competitors? Like, which I say competitors, but people which are doing...
Well, if you think about your own circumstance, there are products you trust and know. And so you would trust certain products to not have nuts in the factory because you have I think you're just a nut allergy, aren't you? You haven't got multiple allergies. And so you can take the shelves of Tesco, edit down everything you can't eat, and what's left is your menu. So for everyone with an allergy, depending on their very unique combinations, we have a different competitive set. So for example, I doubt you'd be touching Alpro ice cream, for example, because they have may contain on the back of their packaging.
Avoid it,
Whereas there might be some ice creams that may contain something else, but they're confident around the nuts. So for you, I'd have a different comp set to somebody who had dairy and gluten, for example. So that only we cover the whole 14 allergen-free community. So on a case-by-case basis, I'm basically interviewing people and saying, well, this is your alternative to us. This is what you're probably eating at the moment before you found Yorica.
I mean, hopefully it'll appeal to the mass audience, like not just allergy sufferers or vegans, but people just looking for tasty ice cream. And I think like trying to get them customers as well, like it's like taking them to like take a leap of faith, really, isn't it? Like, because if I seen an ice cream and said it was free from 14 different allergens, the first thought is taste. So
might taste a bit medicinal, and that was I won't name the competitors, but some of the original stuff that came into this market tasted like it had something removed from it. The fun had been taken out, and it was just cold and wet, and you know, it was basically ice cream, but not quite. The ambition right from the start was to get normal people to eat the product too. So now the tubs, you can take the tubs home. The whole point is that once it's in the freezer, anyone in the family is going to eat it, because they should eat it as a premium ice cream in terms of the taste and texture. There ought to be no compromise. It's for them to judge. People have different palates. But the majority feedback we get is that it tastes excellent. It tastes just like the real thing. And so therefore, if one member of the family has an allergy, you can buy Yorica and eat it as a family together. And half the visitors to the store don't have allergies or aren't vegans. They're just coming here with a mate.
Yeah,
they're their wingman, and they come in and they go, "Oh, I wasn't expecting it to be this good." You know.
Yeah. I mean, when I walked in, I remember I was literally sat right behind me now, and I was sat there with my friend, and I walked in. I remember asking them, I was like, "Is this definitely nut free?" And they're like, "Yeah." I was like, "No, what about this?" Like, "Yeah, everything's like allergy free." And it's just like, it's just like I was kind of like blown away really, because it's like first time where I've like walked into a place and you know what, I was like, I can have this, I can have this. I was a bit blown for choice. Like it's like being in a candy shop where they can have like, you can have everything. So I was like, I want that.
Well, we get this commonly, and one of the nice, we've got a really good Instagram following now. There, people are very generous with their compliments. And one of the nicest things we do for every sort of 2 or 3 weeks is we put up one of the kids who's visited for the first time, and the mum often makes a statement, which we don't script. They just basically write to us and say thank you. And you can just see that it's a really unique experience for them. And after being here for a few years, you think you'd get numb to that, but every time you see it, it's fantastic. As I say, I was in the shop yesterday, and there was a family in from the Isle of Man, and for them, it was clearly a special place. It was a refuge.
That's amazing.
And it reminds you that what you're doing is quite important. It is only ice cream, but it is quite important to them psychologically that it exists.
It must be quite fulfilling then, where you see like these parents come in with the kids, or you receive these emails, whether it's on Instagram, they're saying like, you know what, like this is marvelous for my kids, like amazing experience.
Yeah, it's really amazing, and the thing that I'm really impatient to do now is to get the business to where it ought to be, because we know roughly that 5% of the population are suffering from allergens. Half of them have got multiple allergens, allergic reactions, sorry, and so ultimately there's a much larger market for this. If we can just get the word out there, become slightly more famous, slightly more convenient, available locally, it means there's a business here that can be profit-making, viable, and will be here forever. Whereas at the moment we're still at that break-even point where it's difficult as a business to invest. But if we can get through to that scale factory, we're gonna be here for a while.
So how long have you been going now?
It's been 2015 was when the business was incorporated, when they started playing with recipes. We've been trading for 3 years now. So this is the critical year where we need to really kick through into profitability.
Just keep pushing, But I think it's amazing, like obviously what they've achieved is over like the last 4 years. And I remember you mentioned like you had X amount of like customers through the door in the first year, and it's just keeping out of that, and now it's just like huge. Like,
No, we're now serving. Well, this year will be 50 tons. We'll easily leave the factory, and that will be 3 times more than we did in that first year. And we're at our limit now. I've had to stop selling to customers because I don't have any more to sell for this summer. We're done, and so we need to build some more capacity ready for the autumn, and hopefully we can find some more retailers that are keen to take us on board. And the next trick after that is we need to go to France and Germany and Europe once all the Brexit shenanigans are over, and we know what the tariffs are going to be.
Would you open up? What was the main reason by opening up a store in London? Would you just felt like you seen the opportunity to have like a face for Yorica?
Most trends start here. From a European basis, it's one of those places where food trends come from. There was already a large vegan community here, a really strong bias towards veganism, so we knew we'd have that volume to boost the slower growing allergy audience. And we're on Wardour Street, and so basically it's a 24/7 street.
Non-stop,
it's non-stop, so even in the depths of winter we're still ticking over. And in the summer the queue's out the door. So it's one of those places that's a real showroom for what we're doing. And it also gave the investor the confidence that there was the need for this, there was a critical volume that could be created. We don't think we're going to open any more stores. In the UK, certainly the weather can't be trusted. We really do. We do 5 times the volume in the summer holidays than we do in the middle of winter. So it's a very high and low business. And we think our future now is in tubs at home. And it means people can have it much more conveniently.
I mean, it'd be interesting if you wanted to do like a pop-up exhibition or like, pop up in different places around the city to get the word out. I think that'd be like really good in terms of like getting the name out there, and like at least you don't have to like buy or set up a whole store, but even if it's for a few days.
Well, London's become so commercial now. You look at pop-up and you think, I'll just drive down there and open the doors. Every one of those pop-up locations is charged at full whack. Any of these trailer parks or these that they have a real commercial rate to them, and this store's a lost leader for us. And what we really need to focus on now is becoming profitable, a real business that we know is going to be here forever. Because we've generated a need now, we've generated an expectation. And if we weren't here, there'd be some sorrow, I suspect. We're quite important to a few people now. And so I need to make sure this business is on really sound commercial footing for the years ahead now.
So I was reading online that you've got like a peanut butter ice cream which is nut free, and for me that was like quite interesting because I'm always like, should I try it, should I not? But I was like really interested by that. Have you still got that in the store now?
Unfortunately not. It was one of the really sort of high PR value ones that we did at launch, but unfortunately the recipe for that included soya. So when we went to 14 allergen free, we had to take it out of the store because of cross-contamination risk. We went out there looking for one that tasted just as good, and unfortunately the other alternatives that don't have soya don't taste quite as good in ice cream. So we instead have developed a hazelnut, which is a bit like a Nutella type taste to it. But I'd be interested what you think actually. I mean, as a person with nut allergies, how do you feel about trying something that doesn't contain nuts but has all of the taste credentials of nuts?
I'm always like quite intrigued by it because, to be honest, like I don't know what nuts taste like anyway. So when I try it, I'm like, well, is this what nuts taste like? So I'm always like with a friend, I bring a friend along. What do you think of this? So, but for me, I would love to like try it out and see if I like it. But I know that if I didn't know about Yorica as a brand, and I come in and you said, oh, this is an ice cream called hazelnut, but it's got no nuts in it, I probably wouldn't eat it. But I think because I've got the trust now with you guys, and obviously I know a lot about Yorica and obviously how far you go to make sure there is no cross-contamination or it is allergy-free, then I would try it. But I think if I was just a customer walking through the door, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah, and that's where the maths kind of comes out for us as well. It's not one of our top sellers. It's something people like to try as a bit of a dare or a bit of an intrigue, but it's not the one that they go back to as their favourite, because ultimately it reminds them of the thing that makes them ill, in effect. So it's not necessarily one of our biggest sellers, but it's always one that will be within our range if you want to try it, because it's an interesting experience.
I think it kind of plays with your head, like you start questioning yourself then. So as you walk in, you're like, oh, should it be fine, should it not? And then even if you know it is allergy free, then you're like, oh my god, I may have a reaction. They'll probably like looking at me. I think I actually did that in your store. Like I took the ice cream and I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, but you're still like self-conscious, so you're always like checking your body for like highs. Like, and I was like, no, like I'm absolutely fine, Dan. And you're like, it's all in your head. And I've had that time before where people think they're having an allergic reaction and they're not, and it's just because it starts playing with your head.
Absolutely. And the whole point of coming to an ice cream parlour isn't to torture yourself or to test yourself psychologically. This is
just enjoy
kick back, have something that you really want rather than running experiments on yourself. So it's there as part of a range, but we've got 11 other flavours, 4 soft serves, waffles and batter. So you don't have to take that experience. It's an option.
So in regards to the taste then, like how do you do it? Is it soya or is it different for?
No, can't be soya for obvious reasons.
Sorry, I didn't think about that one.
Well, that's the point. When you get people coming into the store who've got a nut allergy, you don't need to be an expert on the other 13, and there's no reason why you need to be. And so for every person we meet, we have to sort of do a mini interview each time to reassure them. But the recipe is based on coconut cream, but we use rice milk alongside it, and the 2 flavours together balance each other out. So it doesn't end up being a strong coconutty taste. It ends up being very dairy-like, very creamy in the way that we make it. And most of the skill in an ice cream is the craft by which you make it. You have to freeze it down very fast so that the ice crystals that form are very small, and so therefore you don't feel them on your palate.
Okay,
So the creaminess is all about avoiding forming large ice crystals.
Yeah.
This is true in dairy ice cream and in our special ice cream. It's the same skill ultimately to make something that has very small ice crystals. And if your ice cream is temperature abused or isn't frozen quickly enough, it's like that crunchy snow you get in the morning that's gone through the temperature cycle of the night. It crunches under your feet, and that's basically bad ice cream or ice cream that hasn't been well stored. And so that's the real skill here, is to balance out that coconut taste, because you need a source of fat still to get the smoothness, but also then to make it with the craft of a really high craft ice cream maker, so that you get the temperature control right and the churning correct as you're freezing.
And I think with the texture, I remember when I had it, it was like incredible. You know what I mean? Like, it was, I think, my first proper ice cream. You know what I mean? Because usually I don't really eat ice creams at all. So then to have like an ice cream and like you said, the texture was amazing.
The sort of what you get pushed towards is sorbet, frankly, and the vegan community also get pushed towards sorbet, and so our fruit flavors aren't the best sellers here, because ultimately elsewhere in the world you can have cold fruit, you can get that from other places. So what people are obsessed about coming here is that creamy dairy-like texture that you get from a gelato or an ice cream that they can eat here but not elsewhere. And we get challenged by people with allergies as to how do you do this, but equally from vegans this is suspiciously dairy-like type reaction occasionally. So explain to me how this is, are you sure this is correct? So we do spend a lot of time reassuring people that we know what we're doing.
I can imagine, like, just trying to educate people all the time. In terms of like educating people and the staff, like, what's kind of like, do you have like procedures like in place in terms of like making sure that everyone's aware about like the severities of allergies?
Absolutely. We've first of all, we've simplified our claims, and so it's possible to train people to it. There's no judgment required. Our staff are not medically trained, so they shouldn't be entering into a dialogue. It's very clear we're all 14 major allergen free, and we know what those 14 allergens are. Once it goes outside those allergens, if you have a pea protein issue, for example, to pick one outside the 15, we can share with you what's in each of the flavors. But ultimately, there's a risk of cross-contamination because there may be that ingredient elsewhere within the store. Our only commitment is to the 14 currently. We hope in the future we can extend that list, but to start with, the most logical list to go to was the 14 that are known and are clear. And we have to apologise occasionally to people who may have allergies outside the 14, and we have to say, frankly, I wish we could, but sorry, we had to stop somewhere.
That's, I mean, the list could be like, go like, oh, no. Like, but it's, to cover like the whole 14, because usually like you see brands will only cover like maybe 2 or 3. And
so people...
You must make it very difficult for yourselves then, covering like a majority of the 14 main ones.
Most people stop at the 5. There's a few examples out there that have the 5 without an alibi declaration, but most people who have multiple allergies will start to have 2 and 3 and 4, and over life might develop more or lose some. It's a very evolving experience for people. And so we felt that we needed to have a really clear statement and become a rallying point for people with allergies in general, whether it be nut, dairy, or a more complex variant. Because as a brand, it's really important as a brand to stand for something. And so what you don't want to start with is a list of things you don't do. You want to make a really clear statement. We clearly do this. This is what we're famous for. Come to us if that's relevant. And so that was the key decision to go to the 14. And frankly, it wasn't a cheap decision. There was the admin required. That we had to change most of the ingredients we were using to absolutely be certain. We can only use supply from large organisations who have the ability to provide the paperwork that we need. And occasionally, if they can't provide it, you'll see things disappear off the menu. So we had an issue with fresh fruit this year where they couldn't provide the certificate. So unfortunately, there were no fresh fruit in the store. It was inconvenient, but the first step is safety, not about convenience.
So do each of the factories then have a science certificate to say that this is definitely the allergy-free?
It's called a certificate of conformance, and that comes with every pallet load. So they assure us that they have met the spec and the standards that are required.
Is that like the standard kind of steps
Yeah, there's a standard language within
Within
the sort of food science and industrial manufacture of food. Our factory is SALSA accredited. It's the organisation that checks that we do everything the way we say we do. So everything we claim to do, we do consistently, daily, every day, and we've got systems in place to make sure that human error is minimised.
Yeah.
So there's a number of systems in place that work for normal food that we apply. And because we make a claim around allergens, there are extra pieces that we need to do in addition to that which a normal food factory would have to do.
No, it's really interesting. Like it's quite like
it's fascinating. It can get quite tedious for some people. But with your background and your interest, you want to know it's being done.
I imagine you could probably go like really in depth, and people be like, what does it mean? Like,
people do zone out eventually.
It's like when people talk about allergies and talk about it in such like a medical way. It drives me insane. I'm like, well, I'm lost now. Like literally like 2 minutes into a podcast, they're talking about like hypnosis. I don't know or whatever. And I'm like, I'm gone.
Protein receptors. They love to talk about those.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, if that's what gets you going, man, then great. But I think I'm always like just trying to be like really open about allergies. But I just want to say like thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's been amazing to have you on to talk about Yorica. If you want to follow Yorica, do you know the handles off the top of your head? I always put people under pressure.
It's at Yorica Moments is where you'll follow us on Instagram. Anna runs the social media for us. She's here helping us today, and so she'll be responding to any of the queries that you have. Please feel free to ask anything. We're very clear and open about what we do, and we're happy to answer any questions.
I must say as well, like Anna, I spoke to before come today, and like the branding is like amazing. Because I always thought you was using like an agency, and when I met Simon over coffee, I was like, do you use like an agency like for like your branding and your stop motion and like the graphics? She's like, oh no, it's just Anna. Like, so yeah, I think like you're doing a great job of making the brand playful as well.
Well, you're making the salary review we're doing this week really quite hard now, unfortunately. You're giving her leverage here.
I mean, she did give me a nudge on the side. I'll give you an extra ice cream if you put in a good word.
Excellent.
I think it's so important with the brand as well. I probably didn't mention before, but like it is quite playful brand, and it's not like very serious. And I think it's so important to like keep going to that like playfulness as well, which is working really well.
Thank you. We're trying hard to strike that balance, but thank you. Good luck with yours. Hopefully we can do social media things together and
100%,
make each other more famous.
Yeah, we can definitely do more collaborations. I think it's so important that people in the community do like more collaborations like this, and like everyone big each other up, really, innit? But amazing. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
And guys, if you enjoy the podcast, please write me a review on iTunes. It absolutely means a lot. I'm trying to help as many people as can with this podcast. So I really appreciate your help. Anyway, speak to you guys soon. Bye.